Venezuela, the reports coming out of Venezuela, and there have been for a long time, that they have Hezbollah training camps. So terrorists who go and attack America's allies are being literally trained in Venezuela. They are literally being trained on America's back door. And you have the Russians involved. This to the United States of America and Trump in particular is an untenable situation. On Triggernometry, we've been discussing this for the last 2 years and saying this can't possibly continue. When Chavez came to power, he was allied with the Cubans, in particular, the Cuban leader at the time, Fidel Castro. And they had a relationship, which was a beautiful relationship as far as each country was concerned. Chavez provided Cuba with cheap oil, which helped to keep the Cuban economy afloat because Cuba's always 24 hours away from going broke. So that helped to keep Fidel in power. It helped to keep the economy afloat. And what Fidel gave Chavez was the know-how and the intelligence and also the troops to turn Venezuela from a democracy into a fully fledged authoritarian communist regime. So that's the second part. You have a man who is allied with your enemies, and is not only allied with your enemies, he also is providing them with oil. He is also allowing terrorist groups who attack your allies to be trained on Venezuelan soil, literally a couple of hours flight away from America. And there's also the third part of this, which is Nicolas Maduro himself. Because we all know that Americans don't mind a dictatorship as long as they play ball. And one thing Venezuelan dictators have never done is play ball. Chavez, when he described, who was, by the way, a fierce critic of the United States, famously described George W. Bush as being as dangerous as a monkey with a razor blade, openly mocking. When Maduro came to power in 2013, he was following the exact same narrative as his former boss. But he actually upped the ante. Guyana is a country which is next to Venezuela. Guyana is a former British colony. And there has been a region of Guyana that has always been contested. The Venezuelans say it belongs to them. The Guyanese say it belongs to them. And this has been an argument since time immemorial, but it was essentially a piece of impenetrable rainforest. Nobody really cared. Until in 2015, when they discovered huge deposits of oil there. At this point, Maduro began saber rattling, and he started saying, "This belongs to us." He redrew the map of Venezuela to include this region. He then distributed it to every single school child in Venezuela. So every single school child in the schools of that country was brought up thinking that territory belonged to Venezuela. And not only that, he then had an election where he asked the Venezuelan people, should we invade and should that territory belong to us? And in his words, I think it was around 92% of Venezuelans agreed, despite the fact that at this point, our immigrant population was around 8 million and Venezuelans couldn't even afford to eat. It was clearly ridiculous. But what you've just seen is that not only do you have a leader fraternizing with your enemies, not only do you have a leader participating in the drug trade, but possibly even worse than that, you have a leader who is openly contemptuous, openly antagonistic, and openly mocking you. And for a leader as thin-skinned and as impulsive as Donald Trump, this was untenable.